This one goes out to all the anxious kids out there. Do you remember the existential dread that you would feel before the first day of school? It can't just be me, right? It was just like this pit in your stomach, keeping you awake at night, and you could feel it with you. Maybe starting a couple days before the school year started. If you were real anxious, maybe a few weeks before the school year started. Maybe every time you saw that summer reading list. But regardless, you felt this dread. Just thinking about starting a new school year and how worried you were for all the things that could happen or could go wrong. Remember that feeling? That's kind of like the Sunday Scaries. So as a student, I felt that way just about every school year. And I didn't think it would translate over to being a teacher, but spoiler alert, it did. And so we are going to talk about the Sunday Scaries today. If you've been anywhere in education world, you most definitely have heard of the Sunday Scaries. If I had to define it, I would say it's a bit more than even just dread going into a work week. It's even like a sense of helplessness. Like you feel like you are going to experience so many things out of your control and you just fret about all of the things that are going to arise. That's how I would define the Sunday Scaries. And regardless, it is not a fun feeling to have. Today's episode is going to be pretty short and sweet, but I want to start off by talking to you about my own experience with the Sunday Scaries and then a few strategies I have learned over the year to help me manage it to the point where I honestly really don't even have the Sunday Scaries at all anymore. So let's dive in and start talking about my beautiful experience with Sunday Scaries. It really wasn't beautiful, but let's go. So I first started teaching in 2017 and I taught 4th grade, and I thought that the Sunday Scaries were just like a first year teacher thing. Like I would not always get sick in the bathroom before school. Also, spoiler alert, that did not happen. I was feeling so anxious and worried going back to school every week for my first 3 years teaching, truthfully, my first 3 years. And still to this day, before like the first day of school, I always feel anxious, but it's nothing like the feeling I used to have as a first, second, and third year teacher. And the Sunday Scaries wouldn't just stop at Sunday night. They would come with me to school Monday morning, then again Tuesday morning, and Wednesday, and Thursday, and Friday morning. Just like every morning, it was like a pit in my stomach, making me so worried about all of the things that were going to befall me over the course of the day. And if that's you, first of all, I'm really sorry that you are experiencing that because it is no fun to be in. But secondly, I do want to let you know, like, it can get better. It doesn't have to stay like that. So let me talk to you about a couple of things I started doing my 3rd year teaching and now since then that have really helped me cut my Sunday Scaries down to the point where I rarely even have them. The first thing that I started doing when I realized like this is not sustainable, it was my 3rd year teaching, and I was teaching 8 different class periods a day. So what I did is I made a spreadsheet, and in that spreadsheet, I made a column for each day of the week. And within those columns, I also had all 8 of my class periods. I came up with this color coding system as well, where if a class period was green, it was a smooth class, like it was fine. If the class period was yellow, it was a bit difficult, but we managed through. And if it was red, like it was a complete hot mess express, like I should not have come to work that period, like it was just rough. So once I started filling this in, after the first week or so, I started to realize a couple of trends. Number one, I was able to identify the classes that gave me the most issues or the ones that created such an emotional reaction in my body. Number two, I saw that I was marking probably 80% of my day green, maybe one class yellow, and maybe one class red every other day. And this was so important for me to discover because I realized that I was giving so much power and so much weight to that one red period or that one yellow period, and I was completely forgetting the other 80% of the day that went swimmingly. And my mind was so focused on this little fraction of my day, and it kept replaying the events over and over, and I kept building up more anxiety thinking about experiencing it again, and I wasn't putting my day in an accurate perspective. So actually seeing my day blocked out in colors, it helped me make sure that my perspective on my day was really reflecting what actually happened. So if you're somebody who's struggling with thinking about the negatives that happen in your day, color coding your day might be the way to go. Again, you can just make a spreadsheet and color code that way. I don't have anything that I've made personally to give to you, but my friend Shelby has. She made this beautiful organizer that we were giving out during our New Year Better Systems event that we held back in the beginning of January. So if you want hers, it's beautiful. It's like pink and light pink and white. Beautiful. You can check out her TPT store or her website. I will link both in the description for you to look at your leisure. But anyways, implementing that color coding system, that was truly helpful for me. The other helpful thing was therapy. Coincidentally enough, this year, my third year teaching was also the 2019-2020 school year. So when 2020 hit, I was like, you know what? Time to start focusing on my mental health, like we all were while baking banana bread. So I started going to therapy, and my therapist gave me a couple of strategies that truly helped me regulate myself, manage my anxiety, and in turn, cut down on the Sunday scaries. The first thing she suggested that I do is have something for my brain that signals the end of the school day or mentally punching out of work. And if you've been following me for a couple of years, you probably remember watching my Instagram stories and seeing the dancing to dismissal songs I would do. So I created this whole routine at the end of the day where I would play a song and dance around my classroom and then close the door when I was done. And that signaled that, hey, it is time to stop thinking about work. You are off the clock. Time to be Ashlyn again. So doing that was truly helpful for me, and it was just a fun way to laugh before I leave work. And then the second thing I started doing that was very helpful, it's one of those things where you don't want to be helpful because it sounds so ridiculous, but it is. It's breathing. Don't hate me, but taking breaths, having that regulatory breathing for a minute or so, taking 10 deep breaths, 4, 7, 8 breaths, whatever you need, that is super helpful. Even before work, sitting in my car for 30 seconds and doing some 4, 7, 8 breaths, it's tremendous. It is so helpful. And when I would find myself on the weekend starting to get anxious and worried about the upcoming week, I would make myself do those breaths, and it helped. The other thing I started doing was making plans for outside of school hours so that I had to leave school and go be social and go enjoy my life. My goal for the 2019-2020 year was to embrace my youth. I mean, COVID kind of put a wrench in that one. I wanted to embrace my youth and enjoy my life and not feel like I was just living for the weekend. And I feel like we all probably can relate to that. So making plans for a Wednesday night meetup with friends, or going bowling, or I got into rock climbing for a little bit. Doing those things was so good for my mental well-being, and it helped get rid of some of my Sunday scaries because that was more focused on the things I wanted to do when I was getting ready on Sunday for the week, that I wasn't putting as much emphasis on the things that were worrying me, like going back to work. The final thing I started doing that really helped cut down my Sunday scaries to the point where I rarely even have them now is the change I had to my management philosophy. And I've talked about this before, but I no longer view me versus the student in the classroom when it comes to their behaviors. I now view it as me and the student versus their behaviors. So how does that relate back to the Sunday scaries? Well, I feel like on Sunday night, when you're getting ready for the week, you're like, oh my gosh, little Johnny's going to do this or that, or I can just tell he's already going to do this. And then Monday morning, if he comes in, you can see things are off to a rough start. You're like, oh no, predictions have been actualized. It's going to be a terrible week. Ay, ay, ay. It's just tough. And I also feel like when you are in this state of trying to put out all these behaviors, it's like you're constantly putting out fires. You're constantly managing all the things that could go wrong in the classroom. And when you change your lens from being somebody putting out fires to somebody facilitating problem solving, it changes everything. And instead of thinking about all of the problems that I'm going to face over the course of the week, I'm thinking about the strategies I'm going to use to help my students navigate their own emotional needs. And that changes everything. Like even today, I found myself getting negative and starting to spiral a little bit because I had a rough class first period, to the point where I had a few different students I was conferencing with and trying to come up with some logical consequences that fit what they were doing. And I could feel myself in the classroom in front of everybody wanting to lay down the hammer and just say, well, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do that, and take the entire conscious approach out of the situation and just be authoritarian and give consequences. But I had to take a step back, took a breath in the moment, and I met with these students, and we actually made action steps to help them mend what their behaviors caused. And truthfully, I feel like that is so impactful, not just for the students because they actually get to mend what they caused, but I feel like it's very impactful for me because even though I had that rough period this morning, I'm not worried about teaching that class again tomorrow because I feel like we solved what wasn't working this morning, you know? And I think that's an approach that we need to take into our practice more. We have to actually solve things. You know, we can't just put band-aids on a gushing wound and think things will be all right. We actually have to get to the root of what's going on and help children meet their needs. This is going off on a tangent, but all of this to say that changing my approach from viewing me versus the student when there's a behavior issue to me and the student versus the problem, that has really cut down the anxiety I feel, not only going into work daily, but also going into work after the long weekend. And that has cut down my Sunday scaries drastically rarely. And like I said before, I rarely even have them now. So I'm telling you all this because I want you to know that there's hope, and that doesn't have to be this constant spiral of worry and anxiety and fear about what you're going to experience over the week. Like, it can get better. And I'm hopeful that some of these strategies can help it get better for you. And if you want me to go over other things I've learned through therapy that have helped my own mental well-being as a teacher, let me know and I can make that video as well. But in the meantime, I would love to know if there are other things that you think I should have added to this list that have helped you eliminate your own Sunday scaries. Well, that's all I've got for you today. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of the work that you do as an educator. It truly is impactful. And thank you for showing up every day. And as always, you've got this.